Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Ladan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today's guest is Ryan Todd, and he is the founder and CEO of Headversity. And this is a little bit different than what we usually do, because usually we do neural implants, brain-computer interfaces, but this is an app to develop resilience. So, it is a little bit outside of the typical topic of this podcast, but I thought because of, world events right now, I would put this in as a bonus episode. So basically, if you're feeling overwhelmed with the COVID virus, lockdown stuff, and riots going around across the world, then take a listen to this and maybe get some tips of what you can do to be a little bit more resilient and stronger throughout this and thrive instead of simply survive in this. So it's a nice, short, sweet episode, but some nice pointers in there as well. Okay, enjoy. Okay, Ryan Todd, pleasure to have you on the show. You are the founder and CEO of Headversity, which is a resilience training app. And God knows, in the times of COVID and riots and everything like this, we definitely need resilience. And you guys help institutions, companies train resilience in the workplace. Do you want to talk a little bit about you and your company?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Todd. I am the founder of Headversity. I'm also a psychiatrist, and I still work in the hospital and clinically every day. Headversity is a resilience trainer that we put in the pocket of each employee of an organization. And so we work with large and small organizations to increase the resilience, increase the hardiness and mindfulness and energy management, all these crucial resilience skills in large groups of employees. And we do that through a personalized app experience.
Excellent. So can you give us some tips? What is resilience, first of all, and then how do we build it up? And why is it important too?
Yes, well, resilience is really your readiness to face adversity. We all face adversity in greater and lesser extents throughout our lives. Typically, the biggest stressors in anyone's life is our health, meeting deadlines, finances, interpersonal relationships. All four of those things, of course, have been exponentially increased in terms of their strain and stress during the time of COVID and a lot of the unrest going on across the world right now. So it's important because building resilience really builds those skills up so you can face that adversity and not just survive moments of adversity, but have growth through those and thrive through them. So that's why it's important. And there's no tips or trick. It's daily training. There's a methodology to it, and there's a number of skills attached to it. It really starts with self-expertise, knowing yourself and knowing your why you do the things you do, knowing what stresses you out, what makes you happy. Mindfulness is a really important aspect of resilience. Mental fitness, which is all about training your mind and body to be more resilient to stress and understand stress and perform in moments of stress. Mental health, which is a lot of understanding what your own mental health is, where to get help, when to get help. That's an important aspect of resilience. Hardiness is another important resilience skill. And then finally, energy management. So that's kind of the methodology behind resilience training, or those skills. And we know that if you can practice those daily, you can become a more resilient person.
So what are some specific tips would you recommend right now during times of COVID and riots for people that are feeling overwhelmed? What do you think would be best for them to start practicing today or now?
There's a couple of things that are basic and really important when you're dealing with chaos in the external world. And one is a mindset, really, and this is something that needs to be practiced. And it's a hardiness mindset. And part of that is figuring out what is in your control when everything else in the external world seems out of control and quite chaotic is an important skill. And what is in your control is actually everything that is in your skin. So that's your thoughts, that's your behavior, your actions, your efforts towards something. Those are things that are absolutely in your control, and you need to reflect upon those and to try and really control those in times of duress. and pain and chaos in the external world. So that's an important thing that I am encouraging folks to do. I'm encouraging my patients to do in times of chaos and COVID. We're encouraging our employee groups that we work with through the Headversity platform. The second is around energy management, which has been really thrown through a loop with COVID. We are in still parts of North America, still very isolated. It's not a new experience because we've been doing it for like 3 or 4 months in some parts of North America and the world. But it's really thrown our typical energy management routines out the window. Like we've needed to retrain how we eat on a schedule, how we sleep in a disciplined schedule, and especially how we exercise because gyms aren't open in some parts of North America still. So retraining how we do those and be disciplined with what we call the basics. Very important for being resilient through a time like this.
Okay. And so what does resilience look like? What as a resilient person versus a non-resilient? What's the differences between how they appear or how they act?
That's the really tricky part about resilience, is that it's really tough to see. It is easier to feel. And so we talk a lot about athletes because we know that we've seen that's where it's easy to see, right? We've seen athletes who are very resilient through difficult times. So that's why we talk so much about sport, is because it's easy to see the athlete that thrives in those moments of stress, that is cool, calm, calculated, poised, focused. And it is also easy to see the athlete that chokes. And we typically relate that to resilience, in particular, the skill of mental fitness, which is developing the tools to manage that stress. So it's not necessarily something that you would see. It's not necessarily something that is very ostensible. Resilience is something that you feel. And that's really why we've created a resilience score through Headversity, because it is easier to see a number and have yourselves relate to a skill as opposed to this, like, I don't know, je ne sais pas sort of thing. Yeah, so in the Headversity platform, we actually give you a score once you take a quick psychometric on your resilience skills. And then that score guides you towards the tools and content that would be most helpful for you.
What have been some outcomes of the companies and people that you have trained throughout this app?
There's a number of subjective outcomes and stories. Some of the more powerful stories have come from some in-person experiences when we get the unique opportunity to go do an in-person session, which we don't do very often with our platform, to kind of onboard an organization. A gentleman who, for whatever reason, I had a bias that he was not the person who would reach out for mental health help, for example. He was an older gentleman, and he came up with the app and said, when is the time to get help? Because he had a 1 out of 6 on his mental health score. And he said, is now the time to get help? Which I thought was a really interesting, and it was very powerful for me as a psychiatrist, because I'm always trying to improve help seeking and get people to the care they need. And this was a gentleman who typically wouldn't get help, was getting help earlier because of his use of the app. So we have a number of subjective stories that are kind of powerful and impactful for me. We have been able to show with large organizations increases of subjective mental health, mindfulness scores, hardiness scores at a tick of about 30% over the course of 6 months of app usage. And in general, overall, about 15% increases in resilience scores. And a stat that we actually also track is how long people engage with the content in the app. And for most companies, they're at about 6 to 8 minutes is the average daily use time each day. So that's a good story for us, because we know that people are checking into the app consistently and they're doing the training often. And that we know is a thing that helps build resilience.
This is really interesting. Well, Ryan, if people want to learn more, how do they sign up for the app? Are they able to use the app? Is it a personal thing, or is it only for larger institutions?
We typically work with organizations, so you can download it, but you will need an invite code from your company. So if you have an HR manager, director, anyone who may be in charge of wellness in your organization, you can encourage them to contact us. And you can do that through our website, www.headversity.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
No, I appreciate the call today. Good luck, and we wish everyone health and safety wherever you are in North America, because there's so much going on. And I guess the important note about resilience training and what we do with Headversity is that it is hard work. It takes time, and what you put into it is what you get out with resilience training. And that's what we are trying to tell everyone, with anyone who wants to engage in such a thing, is mental health can be hard work.
Exactly. There's no magic pill for this. It's like the gym. You have to put in the effort to get the results that you want. So thank you so much, Ryan. This has been excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.